Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. I wanted to speak about an interesting idea. Something that has been taking place from the beginning of the emergence of the human species. But we have not noticed it, or we're not engaging it seriously to notice it. Before giving this talk, starting this talk, I was wondering about what is reality. Pretty much every day I wake up and I ask myself, how is the species, how are human beings on a rock in the middle of nowhere containing reality? In what ways can they contain, and in what ways did they contain reality? That means, as much as there are things about the future we do not know, there are things about the past that we cannot find again. The suggestion of lost technologies and the suggestion of undiscovered technologies. An arbitrary sense of realism is moving the objective body. Our body is made of an object, but what is managing this object is not an object to itself. The sense of self, the projection, that means it's as if what the neurons are doing from the beginning are mysterious. Excuse me. I'm trying to find how I can word this. Really arbitrary realities. There's suggestion that a world is taking place inside a world. This world is non-local. That means something that doesn't have location is moving in a location when a creature that is defined by the location wonders how the location moves. That means all of human understanding lies in the comprehension of force, what a force means. We say a force is a push or a pull. You know, that's the most basic definition of a force. Or we can say when we see something move, that's the animate result of the force. That is the potential of the force becoming kinetic. Now, whether it's a push or a pull, let's wonder about consciousness. This may be a strange tangent I'm going here, but let's wonder about the idea of a force as a push and a pull, but a push and a pull in two dimensions. So what it means is what is a push can be seen from another angle to be something that is being pulled, and what is being pulled can be seen by being as if it's pushed by something. So we have the ability to see an arbitrary pusher. That means reality, an arbitrary force, an arbitrary something arbitrary is pushing actual reality is pushing reality, or there is something real being pulled by something arbitrary. Now, those people who saw it, what am I saying, those people? There was a scholar, Terence McKenna, he saw it as a sort of, we are being attracted, we are going towards somewhere. That means we have this view that the universe, it was pushed from the beginning. We don't have this view that it's getting pulled by its end. That means we are defining, the biggest error in human thought could be the concept of a beginning. That means we so easily say, we began, we will end. But what if it was like kind of Benjamin Button style, where it's like the ending is the beginning. It's a sort of reverse. I can see myself being an individual creature ascending, for example, and that's a term that you can find in the New Age community used often, where a person can feel, yeah, I'm individual and I'm ascending towards something more. Right? Or the person could have this view that I am something more already and I'm just being pulled towards. That means in the inner realm, life is very easy. You can consider it already lived. But in the outer realms, it's different. And if the species cannot solve this object-subject-subject-object paradox, our language is useless. That means we're saying an object projects a subject. Check this out. An object projects a subject. You needed your brain before you could have your psychology, but you need the psychology to, in some sense, move the brain, move the body. That means we are actually never an object. We are the conscious awareness to a moment where its content, a dimension of its content is an object. We can even extract a branch of metaphysics from this, considering it that it's as if what we consider to be an individual mind is like ice, as if somebody gave you an ice cube and you're holding this ice cube in your hand wondering, what am I doing with my life? And this ice cube in your hand is melting, and so it could be that we are in some sense the sculptors of our own clay. And that's a strange statement to say. So this means the speaker of this talk, me, right now as I'm speaking, and you, the listener, our bodies exist, our minds don't. Our minds, as long as there's the object-subject paradox at work, it's like behind our eyes, a subject is moving an object. In front of our eyes, objects move subjects. Simple as that. This nullifies the stories of intelligence. We cannot choose a side. That means I can't tell right now if the body is only here or if the body is an antenna. And what we think is life, or at least individual human living, is the illusion. It could be that it is collective life from the beginning. You know what it is? We cannot ignore how life is an arbitrary force. There's no reason for it to be there. That means we did not open our eyes in a reasonable universe. In a universe where, in some sense, one modality of thought could endlessly outlast the others. It is not a sort of Hunger Game of which a formula caught it all. You know, it's like we're playing Lord of the Rings with mathematics, but in regards to a universe, you know, it's like it transcends that. And we entertain science fiction, but what's hilarious is in all our science fiction writings so far, I would say in human history, it is in some sense not seeing a psychological shift. That means you can see, let's say, a scientist, and of course science is a method. Anyone who uses the method in that moment, you're a scientist, you know. not as with the same weight as like professors, but I'm saying that there's two components. There is the scientific method, and then there is the scientist, or let me say, there's the person that uses the scientific method as a filter automata, let's say. So we have someone who isn't a scientist, someone who understands the scientific method, uses the scientific method, and then that person becomes a scientist, right? So non-scientists use the scientific method, became the scientist. Now, there's way more to this. I'm just using this as an example. What I'm saying, the scientist part is psychology. That is arbitrary force. But when we come to the actual scientific method, where you can implement it and results suggest stability in the universe, that means it's as if every human being has been experimenting. Do you know, it's not that it was before science, there wasn't anything of the sort. Any creature that smelled food, that tasted different kinds of food, you know, that they ate a little bit of food and was like, okay, this tastes like not food, and put it away. That was in some sense an engagement of verification of the outer realms in accordance to the inner realms. The biggest cultural issue with the current time is that we have abandoned our mind. We have exiled imagination out of reality, not realizing reality was imagined. That means if I was to say, in this world, seriously, is there more evidence of unknown activity, or is there more evidence of known activity? And we are like candles where our knowledge is like the small spherical glow around us. That means knowledge is really personal. The unknown is impersonal. That means it's like those people seeking knowledge, you're still seeking self-improvement. You haven't realized how the world improves is not because of an individual knowing more. It's the whole species seeing more than it saw before. That means what's the value of somebody creating an invention, but then that invention never seeing the light of day? What is the point of someone writing a poem and not sharing that poem, you know? And it could have meaning. I mean, everything could have unique meaning based on the style of living a human being. I mean, I see it as different alphabets. I see it that when I look at myself as an individual, there is a language for that. You know, as if my personal identity is actually following an alphabet of imagery that so far in this life I have seen my psychology activate through, let's say. we are ignoring how 50% of the human life is arbitrary. And because we're ignoring this, we limit the borders of our reality, not realizing we're drawing the lines. That means whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever story you have heard about your life, whatever story you have animated about your life, to realize that subjects aren't objects, and objects are not subjects, but in movement, they are all the movement. That means, like, if I want, okay, let's say I get a feeling like I want to, let's say be cool, and I start dancing right now. Okay, I start like doing some sort of dance. Now imagine there's an earthquake happening and somebody was doing a shaking dance. Okay, now they were first doing the dance. The shaking of the dance was originating from them. But then when the earthquake happened, let's say, I have actually experienced an earthquake, but a 4.3 Richter one. And I totally felt the house moving, everything was moving. And I would say in that earthquake, everything is shaking simultaneously. So for us, imagine someone doing the shaking dance in the middle of the earthquake, and it's like, okay, how can we tell if the person's shaking because of the earthquake or the person is shaking beside me because of them wanting to dance? Right? If we had the luxury of nothing in the world moving and only we were moving, I would totally be down with reasoning of a material nature. But just because the world changes in a changing system, where are you gonna what are you gonna consider the first point of reference? That means, isn't it strange that life is like this giant universal event, this giant happening, the grand happening I've called it in other talks, like this grand happening event, this giant universal event. It's as if we are as significant as we have noticed ourselves. That means the biggest question is, how do we know that physical birth isn't higher dimensional visualization? What a question. How do we know physical birth isn't a higher dimensional visualization? You know how right now I can imagine like a universe in my mind, just a mini universe, based on how I've seen it. Let me not say universe. Let me say I can visualize a mini galaxy. I've seen a picture of the Andromeda galaxy, let's say, and I can visualize it instantly. And so the Andromeda galaxy popped out of nowhere. And let's say in that visualization of the Andromeda galaxy, there were actually civilizations and creatures. And one of those creatures in my visualization of the Andromeda galaxy suddenly noticed I am visualizing the Andromeda galaxy from the Milky Way. Do you know that means it is a very cool moment where it's as if the thoughts of God are waking up beyond language. You know, I don't know if the universe will authorize me to remain here that long, but there's a wave, there is something. The multidimensional renaissance. When human beings for the first time realize everything they have judged between the good and bad was never just the good and bad. It was a multi-dimensional spectrum where we were choosing the dual filter. And you know, it was very shocking for me. You know, my real name is Amin Jaber Ansari, and there's something I would say, this is my lament, L-A-M-E-N-T. The lament of this lifetime, for me at least, has been how language is distracting us from the mystery in the room, that if ignored any longer, we will become machines. Before, let's say, I mean, I've declared 2020 the year of advanced communication from this moment on, but our ancestors had to take care of their bodies. We have to take care of our minds, like how our ancestors took care of their bodies, and the future generations will take care of their soul, like how we, right now in this current era, will take care of our minds. People don't notice this, but a history is a book. And what it means is that it's an unfinished novel in the void. And the potential of this novel, I feel it happens in phases, just like we have seasons. 4 different seasons. I feel there's also seasons to intelligence. And we just narrow it down to human intelligence, but it's not, it's way more complex. And we have built a civilization. That means civilization 1.0, our current civilization, it has only prepared and trained itself for dualistic response. That means if there were some sort of extraterrestrial civilization in the future, let's say in the distant future, invading us, or even if an extraterrestrial civilization invaded us right now, okay, it's as if we would be lost in our own dimension, so we would be so easily manipulated. That means there is 3 other dimensions alongside duality. Void beings, the way we have built a civilization, can, if they want to, they can rule over us. Collective beings, we can notice ourselves to be them. A collective being can't rule. A collective being can't conquer. A collective being cannot be attributed to one verb. It becomes like it could be attributed to one noun being endless verbs. Or think of it in the future. Right now I'm live streaming, and the live streaming capability of our human technologies allows my voice to teleport to you. Sound is being teleported. But imagine in the future, if somebody has a live stream, tries to kind of keep going this, the legacy of this great work, it would be as if you could see someone's experience. That means imagine I could press a button right now and you could exactly see how my inner realms appear to me. These in the inner film I speak about, that I'm often just translating in these talks. Earth is a training room. It is not a school, and it is not a prison. It is not hell, and it is not heaven. Earth is where truth has access to dualistic training. what can I say about a world that experientially exists and is existentially experienced? I would say there is four classes of consciousness. Why not? Let's term it. That means in certain, video game developing companies, when they create characters, they want to give, like, okay, check this out. Let's say you're a video game developer, and your mentality as developing a video game is that you want to give the person experiencing the video game a freedom that they cannot experience in reality. Now, I'm not saying that physical existence is a video game for an eternally attributeless presence, but in the video game there was character customization. That means if you found yourself in a sort of simulated realm where there's a self and there's a world, as if in the video game the person had complete control. You know what it is? It's like playing a video game is like being born with your own decisions on what you want to be born as in the video game, right? There's a level of free will experience, virtual or artificial free will experience, that technically can make the person imagine it's real or whatnot. That means even though something is artificial, it doesn't mean a real being cannot see something real in that artificialness. That means when the universe is wise, even if we realize we're all fools, we can never be. You see, it's like, and there's nothing wrong with multidimensionality. It's just like waters the species hasn't learned to swim in, as a psychology. And here's the complex thing: this will only happen if people don't treat themselves as a subject. They treat themselves as the witness of the subject that is moving the object. This is literally the mystical algorithm. This is the whole point of enlightenment. You watch how your attention is being everything that can be done and is being done in the moment. That means ultimately when a person becomes selfless, they have become the world first. It's as if, oh my God, my soul slipped into the world. Now instead of a self, I am everything. You know? So, anyways, back to the video game. Inside the video game, there's free will, and you have a choice of your own birth in the simulation. And what's fascinating is that the person playing the video game is a three-dimensional being, but in the video game, they are in a 2D dimensions, whatever they can be. So technically, it's literally playing video games is magic. You can literally consider that as magic. And not magic in a in a negative context, but magic in its most ancient term, meaning the mystery of the realm. You see, before it became good and bad magic based on good and bad people and a sort of cultural ethos's development, it was just the living mystery. This living mystery, living experiential mystery surpasses any word. You can't call it a miracle even. And what's hilarious is everything is a miracle until we explain it, isn't it? Imagine aliens come down and these aliens are not intelligent, and we see like, oh my god, why are these aliens talking to our cars, right? And the aliens haven't realized, imagine there's a human being inside a car. Alongside character customization in the video game, there is also, you have a freedom of your character, you have a freedom of your character's name, you have a freedom of the character's evolution. You can choose how you evolve in the game based on, it's literally like, that's the whole thing of free will. That means many people don't realize video games are where human beings express their free will in cyberspace without consequence. You know, I was thinking about even this notion that we should encourage more harsh comments on YouTube and social media, the opposite of what people want. They're like, stop cyberbullying. I'm like, no, it should be the opposite. Let me tell you why. Because we want to, as a species, try to at least, let's say by the year 2040, get all violence, or let's say 2050 plus, like, we want to get violence out of the outer realms into cyberspace. That means if people want to go fight, they can, but they go fight in cyberspace, right? They literally put on virtual reality goggles and they could go in whatever, they could select the map they want to fight in, and all these versus games that the first console players of the realm played. You know, I don't know how many people know, you know, what the word Tekken means, but I think at this point it's like lore. It's cyberspace mythology, like Mortal Kombat, you know, on the PS1, right? We liberate the outer realms. When we realize we're not language, when we realize we're not pixels, then in pixels and language, we can go all out without having outer realm consequence. And multidimensionality helps this. That means now we have come to a point where parents even have to teach their children to realize it's not just, things are not just good or bad, things are multidimensional, and your judgment of what the right thing to do in the moment is based on how many different angles you saw the moment to the best of your ability and then made a decision. That means inner realm patience is like the best thing the children of the future can be armed with. A patience for their own eyes to proceed into the moment. Now, in some video games, you finish the video game and, oh my god, I beat the boss, and you know, it's like done deal, you know, now you take out the disc at the end of the game. And I thought, what if it's like, that's an apocalypse? What if this universe you can entertain, let's say you go as far as Michael Talbot's holographic universe, and then at the same time entertained, like, okay, so what if we finish the game and then it's like the CD gets taken out and a completely new universal game is put. That means this idea of civilizations rising and falling, it is as hollow as the non-local subject being moving the intelligence of the person. It's as if truth has completed the simulation, its own simulation. That's true renunciation. That means I know that There's in any war, whether a regular war or an interdimensional war, there is always casualties. In a war that is in one dimension, the casualties are in a sort of life and death situation. But in an interdimensional war, the casualties are lost in multiple locations. That means we think of not the fragmented psyche. I mean, that's nothing. That means people think like the fragmentation in psychology. It's like the most bizarre thing. Not realizing that is nothing compared to personality in more and more multidimensional contexts. That means it's like it's like we thought we would. You know what it is? It's like you're an individual object, and as you live life, just by the nature of the brain tunneling through the space-time continuum and recording, I don't know, like the brain's filming itself. I don't know what the brain's doing. The brain is a director. Oh my god. You know, that explains how imagination is a film. You know, the brain has dreams of, winning an Oscar. That's how incredible the film of the brain is, And ultimately, I feel emotions do become like the spirit guides of limited thoughts. If we were to go ask yogis, what's going on in this universal sector, they will instantly tell us it's the game of the gods. That's the jewel of that's the diamond of the ancient world. That the world is the game of the gods. But now we have pushed aside the idea of gods. We're like, okay, our ancestors got a little excited. And now we're just completely focused on the object, not realizing what do we do in the void. That means this is why Voltaire, which I consider him to be one of the most incredible human beings on this planet, he said a statement that even if we didn't have the concept of God, it would be necessary to create it. And he was a very deep seer of the realm. That means he wasn't wearing God like a jersey, like a football jersey, God wasn't a behavioral, a lifeless behavior. It was the living truth, whatever that means to whoever says it. So when the idea of God, it's as if we were like, there's no God. And I'll return back to the Voltaire thing in a second, but it's like, we're like, there's no God, but then we're like acting like gods in our subconscious. It's hilarious. It's like the person's like, I don't believe in God, right? And the person's like, then why are you eating all the pizza? Why are you acting like a god? Voltaire's implication was, it's empty. In emptiness, spontaneous personality has emerged. Personhood. This personhood, what else does it have a choice? It can communicate to the planet, it can communicate to other human beings, it can communicate to its inner realms, its inner abstract senses of self, it can communicate to animals, even some people communicate to plants, but I don't know, I think that's usually a one-sided conversation. There's people even who speak to stones, the elemental realm. There's probably chemists who wish they could speak to probably have some questions for hydrogen, you know. Excuse me. So pretty much because we're in the middle of emptiness, there would eventually, regardless of how many times, let's say there was a militant atheistic movement where it was like not thought police, it was thought war. And so there was this movement where it was literally nullifying all arbitrary possibilities of reality. That means literally it's like the person, if they don't want to believe in imagination, then in some sense you can't love your wife, you know. Yeah. This is why romance is in some sense in the artist's paradigm. But anyways, because the universe is empty, we're like, we will attempt communicating to the universe, and the only thing that we know that communicates is the sense, it's like this idea of the self. So pretty much, Voltaire is just to finish this again. Voltaire knew, regardless of whatever we say to temporary creatures on this rock, the wilderness to want to communicate with the whole universe can't be denied. It's literally like our curiosity as a species is like a valve, and our beliefs and disbeliefs, where you can say they're beliefs on beliefs. It's this massive belief kind of cloning war. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's kind of sad that it's like drawing a stick figure on an empty page, drawing a circle around it, and then inside that circle you draw endless shapes, and all this stick figure, its whole life is in the glow of its mind. It's in its awareness. And in how many other dimensions could our life be happening that we're not aware of? In in how many doors could our feet be in simultaneously? You know. Sometimes I ask myself, when I remember something, who am I? And there's no time, because you can't remember something in time. That means time and space as words are just paint on the face of primitive human, imagine the primitive society, a human being. So I am saying we are as oblivious as the caveman making noise. This is a very deep, I would say, philosophical idea, but it's the question of if there ever was meaning, if the hallucination, or I shouldn't say hallucination, but the illusion of reality was that we felt it had to be a truth, right? That could be a total paradigm, but it doesn't lead to a human outlook. That means the way filter ideological systems. That means even when I kind of communicate to people, I am very cautious of those people who, in some sense, are not human to themselves. You know, in the outer realms, your body, you're embodied as a human being. In your inner realms, that which is viewing is where the unknown variables lie, right? So who is the intelligent? Who is the painter of intelligence in the void? Yeah, who is the painter of intelligence in the void? Three outcomes for existence, maybe. Existence always existed. Existence, one pathway is it's going to stop existing, non-existence. Or existence is going to transform. It's going to transcend the form. So three possibilities. That means any person in anywhere on the planet, you're either seeing you have a sense of self, or you don't have a sense of self, or your sense of self is the world. That means either the ego is here, either it's just the world here, or there was nothing here, or beyond, or another or. I'm saying or so much, it's like a dwarf in a mountain in Middle Earth would kind of get the wrong idea. It's like O-R-E, you know, that's the joke. Anyways, I missed it. The mystery of arbitrary realities. Let me look at that part of the sentence first. Mystery means chaos's domain. Arbitrary realities means order's domain. So when we wonder about what life means, it's like we're wondering about the chaos of the order. And imagine an advanced civilization where human beings They no longer feared chaos or loved chaos, and they no longer feared order and loved order. We became the multidimensional return to the timeless future, where as our individualism, either through technological means or natural means, reaches dehumanization. That means if we make the experience of human life so unpleasant, if we make it so hard and so heavy to be a human being, people are going to be like, oh my god, I can't wait to just become like a program in cyberspace and don't have to, move this body anymore, right? So based on how we treat our outer realms, there will come a sort of karma of will we remain human or not? And this is the hardest thing, That means parents have to wonder in the future is like, is my child gonna stay human? I remember I wrote this short film, and it was set in the future, and the whole idea was there's this parent, there's this father and mother, and imagine two daughters, if I remember correctly, and so they're sitting there and at the dinner table, and you know how I don't know, like the teenage daughter in the movie went and told his father, can I get a tattoo? And the father's like, no, unacceptable, no daughter of mine's gonna get a tattoo. So it's like, imagine that, but imagine that in the future where the daughter has come and it's like, Dad, everybody's a robot in school, I want to be a robot. And the father's like, what kind of school are you? But what happens is the father says, unacceptable, no daughter of mine's gonna be a machine, And so the way I designed the ending of the film is that the next day a robot knocks on the door dressed in the daughter's clothing, and the father tears up. It's like, no, my daughter became a machine. And then the mother and the daughter come in the house and it was a prank, But the danger of dehumanization. It could be that we become so much more interested to be minds than bodies. So it doesn't matter if the body is biological, doesn't matter if the body is technological, it doesn't matter if the body is sub-real, I don't know, is virtual, is cyberspace. What that means is, imagine like your body was like in the movie Matrix, the dude's like lying down somewhere, but he's conscious, he's existing inside his consciousness, or his consciousness connected to, like, I don't know, a computer. And this is why, philosophy is something that it shows itself as a backup system to the void. That means anytime we go towards inner self-extinction, philosophers, it's as if like the universe is like, all right, time for these seeds to sprout in the, let's say, cosmic soil, Because when you treat yourself as an emergence, we are treating ourselves as a verb. That means, isn't it strange that when somebody says, who are you? A person can give a straight answer, a simple answer, but a person can't It's like the person's like, are my great grandkids are gonna be like lines of code in a kind of like future techno mind. Right now, we're experiencing, for example, humanized political systems, and, for example, one with workable liberty, we call the democratic. Now imagine in the future, it's not human beings that are deciding, because no human mind can do what AI can, so it becomes a technocratic government. Now, this is not something to fear, because we as a species, it's like, because we're living in the void, we have nothing to lose. That means every day I wake up, I'm like, oh yeah, I woke up from nothing, so, you know, what's the big deal? Whatever happens in this realm, I return to nothing. Nothing is kind of like stepping outside of the room of the weight that you had to carry. That means it's as if people don't realize suffering doesn't exist. Pain exists, for example, you know, like sensations exist, the senses have a sort of existential value, but suffering, that means imagine your brain right now is receiving the senses, but check this out, you're required to receive the senses to be a you. That means the idea of you is dependent on your sensory perceptions. Sorry, I'm just writing this down. So when thoughts get heavy, I record to write them. So the idea of you is dependent on your sensory perceptions, and then your sensory perceptions the sensory perceptions are dependent on the idea of you. So what that means is the sensory perception has no reason to be an individual. This is the spooky thing of what's going on here, you know, and it's kind of cool, you know. It's like Friedrich Nietzsche's adaptation of Diogenes, where he's gone in the market with a lantern in the middle of the day, and people are like, Diogenes, what are you looking for, man? Why do you have a lantern in the day? Why are you wasting this? What a foolish old man. And, you know, somebody says, what are you looking for, Diogenes? And people are like laughing in the market, and Diogenes looks at him and says, I'm looking for an honest man. You know, and he leaves. And it's like all those people who were laughing, suddenly they have a collective massive reversion into their decency, you know. The senses are just meaningless. They're just patterns. They're geometry. That means that they're just moving geometry. And what is processing it? We say it's a genetical self-replicating pattern within, you know, not within in the sense I'm using. When a biologist says, you know, talks about what is within you, it's going back to the DNA, to the gene. When a philosopher says what is within you, it's going back to the mystery of consciousness. So I guess we can say the attributeless witness, the unknown witness, the unknown witnessing awareness, the unknown witnessing awareness plus spontaneous organization, spontaneous organization, the spontaneous organizer. So that means right now it's not just there's an object, there's a subject, and there's an unknown awareness that is noticing how a subject is locating itself within the ownership of its object, of its body. But it's also the inner realm mover of the landscape. You know what it is? It's as if our mind, when I use the word mind, it's not referring to the our mind. Let me just continue with it. Our mind, it has a balcony, and when attention goes in that balcony, it sees a world where it is not moving, where the known variables of the realm are not interpreting what is unknown. The unknown variables are interpreting what is known. The authority of the realm is not from here. It's as if we're like the, I don't know, we're like the inner layer of the onion. That means the inner layer of the onion is really right there before emptiness. That means an onion doesn't exist because it has no center. And by the way, how many onions exist if we choose to see an onion exist? You know, it's like the onion is the most multidimensional vegetable in existence. Like, what is this? I would say the onion is an extraterrestrial vegetable, probably, you know, from Orion. So at the center there is no self. So imagine 7 layers of an onion. Imagine 7 planes, the 7 lokas to the Mount Meru in Vedic thought. 7 dimensions. So we're like in 7 worlds, and we're in the bottom one, according to Vedic thought. So we are closest to emptiness. So we have the closest to realization of emptiness. That means we have inside the onion layer at the closest to the center has access to emptiness, and the onion layer very outside has access to emptiness. You know. That means the small and the big can access emptiness, but all those dimensions in between, they have universes to deal with. In the chat section, Wolf says, maybe it's all the suffering I've been through of why I love much. But I'll tell you what, my friend, all the pain I've been through in life gives me an understanding that those who hurt, I can relate. Yeah, that's the cool thing. Whatever happens in this life, because it becomes a memory, after that moment, you can scroll through your memories, just like how you scroll through the internet. I'm telling you, people can scroll through their memories. Your inner landscape is unconditional. So you could literally, just like a transformer saw a better car and updated itself in your inner realms, once you see a geometrical movement that was impossible before, it updates your whole comprehension of the geometry of the world. So, and you can observe that geometry. Sometimes it's like a book. It's like treating your memories like a bookshelf, and each memory is like a journey of its own. It's like a dimension where you were a certain self in a certain context, with a conceptual aim. there was a saying that said to be in the world and not of it. And you can say to be of the world and not in it, as a sort of reverse of that algorithm. Duality gives you a certain access. The void gives you certain insight. That means in certain, let's say a person has a memory of their defeat. It's as if there's this view in at least, you can say in certain mentalities towards warfare, there's no such thing as victory. Victory is like it's like a legendary myth, like a phoenix suddenly spotted in the sky at night. Victory is the long term, looking back behind your shoulder and seeing how far you've come. But every moment, if treated as a battle, the person has to be 24/7, in some sense, alert. And this alertness has to do with how they constitute, because a human being can distract them, their own self, from their outer realms. Right? But it happens to all those people who say, for example, I'm telling you, if there's anyone listening right now, and if you in your psychology have this mentality, like let's say any sort of mentality a person has, like, I hate this world, I don't understand it, why is it, like, if there's any sort of hatred you have, look at what happens, or even fear or hatred, look at what happens. Anything you stop caring about, you stop checking with its update in the space-time continuum. And so when a human being doesn't care for their outer realms, their inner realms are left. Their inner realms are like, yeah, you still have a body. It's like, what do we do? Of course I'm animating it, but it's not an animate thing, it's a movement. For me, it's like, on some level, sure, you can say I'm a person speaking right now, but on another level, I'm just the presence of an energy. That means who knows if extraterrestrials in the future come down and we're like, oh man, how should we speak to these extraterrestrials? And they're like, you don't need to speak to us. We're already seeing you as the ultimate energy you are. That means how you are deep down cannot be hidden from the advanced dimensions of the realm, which literally means your mind is universally naked. That means nobody could have ever in this realm hidden anything. There's nothing to be shy about, nothing that can be hidden. That means that this is a way the person, imagine there's some people, their way they handle their shyness is like, okay, it's okay to be shy. And there's some people who they're like, okay, I will go into that, into the, walk over the flames of, self, whatever, self-breaking. And the person who engages wins. It's like, when is the species gonna get tired of endlessly, it's like every day being a new character in a story, right? I feel in the future there's gonna be levels to civilization. That means it's as if every person, first of all, could be pinpointed on a massive grid of psychological nature. That means there's no longer branding or judgment in the realm, because we have become too multidimensional for judgment, and anything that we don't understand, we treat it as a new dimension until we understand it. That means, imagine the opposite of the scientific method, where through falsification we are trying to clarify reality. Now imagine through the opposite, That means imagine one strategy is like there is no truth, nothing is true. One strategy is everything is true. Let's see how the karma of the moment plays out. Because if we're neurons temporarily here, that is if free will, if the secular society gets rid of the idea of free will, which materialistic philosophy tends to have nowhere else to go other than that. So it means secular society is nullifying the individual, but everybody is living as individuals with individual human rights. If we fear death, it doesn't make sense. If we fear life, it doesn't make sense. Both lead to nowhere. It is only in wonder. Now I feel there's no greater force. When a person wonders about something, they're wondering ultimately the end result of their attention. And so we don't know what death is, so how can we fear it? Like we can know that we can fear while we're human, the absence of the human, but after the absence of the elemental positioning, it's like if there is something that continues, how could that fear? So if there's fear beyond physical manifestation, I don't know what's going on in the spirit realms. It's like some, it's like, we need some shamans, with signposts, in front of another dimension, being like, Imagine God came to man and said, "Man, I will give you anything. What do you want?" And man was like, "God, I don't want anything. You figure yourself out. What's going on here?" It becomes a sort of notion where it becomes a sort of wonder of the deeper context of living. There's a story of this Sufi mystic poet by the name of Hafiz. And Hafiz, he goes to this very enlightened Sufi sage by the name of Attar, Attar, and Attar of Nishapur. And he goes to Attar and he says, "I want to be your disciple." And he says it with intense, like, I'm ready, I want to be your disciple, something like this. And Attar looks at him and says, "You're not ready." As if like, get out of my lawn, get off my lawn. But what it is, he says, "You're not ready." And Hafiz, he's a very I shouldn't say liberated, but he's a very intelligent person. And what he does is he goes into the desert and he draws a circle in the sand and he sits there for 40 days. Until all his desires on everything in the space-time continuum have dropped and gone. And so after 40 days, an angel comes to Hafiz, and the angel says, "Hafiz, you have been so selfless. Heaven shall give to you anything. What do you want? And Hafez is silent. That means the heavens gave him a hand, but Hafez was silent. And then the moment moves on and Hafez stands up from the circle and he goes back to Attar, and Attar is there and he sees him, and Attar says, now you're ready. Now you have gotten rid of your individual stories, desire to have the outer realms meet it. You know? And I will tell you, time is a V, is a capitalized V. Where we started from the left, let's say we see it, imagine a capital V, and then the left point is like, that's the origin of our universe, and it goes into a point towards a timeless moment, and from the timeless it re-emerges as time. So there is no such thing as extinction. There is the reflection of civilizations from the timeless into another time. So there is no such thing as death, but there is reflection of consciousness. That means, imagine you are a light beam that never dies. This is a ridiculous analogy, but just imagine you're a light beam that never dies. And this light beam is in a room of mirrors, right? And so every mirror you hit is an incarnation, right? And so the light beam goes into this room and it hits the mirrors, and it's like ching, 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 ching. It's all the mirrors and it's going, you know. And yet it is the same light. It is just reflecting until it realizes itself, until it realizes, who do you think this room is for? That means, isn't it strange that in the religious narrative, in the Abrahamic traditions through that lens, if you were a theologian listening, it's like, God made the earth for the human being to use, yet the human being feels it can't use it because it didn't create it. Look at the paradox. God's like, I made this world for you, and we're like, this isn't our world, God, this is God's world, we can't do anything. You know, God's will only moves us, right? And so that is in some sense the danger. I think if I was to predict something to religious circles of thought, I would say there's this saying in Vedic thought, at least, they say a God that comes and goes is not the real God. You're not looking for a conditional satisfaction of a moment of state of mind, you're looking for the unconditional being. To realize the one looking is unconditionally being. Arbitrary realities are sculpt the real one. That means our inner realms influence our outer realms. This whole talk is pretty much me sitting in front of a blank page. And I've realized, like, it's been a while where I've realized some people call it thinking through images, but I call it's an internal cinematic language. It's a film. It's a legit film going on behind our eyes. Literally, life can be said to be two films, a physical film and a non-physical film, and their relationship, the oscillation of attention between these two, between this everything and nothing, you know, this truth is everything, or, you know, the illusion is nothing. Like, we must free ourselves from our ancestors' early acceptance. Every human being can update, and regardless of what culture you're in, I'm a bit of a maverick. This is why I kind of push myself away from looking at politics and anything like that, because I know that I'm more of in the artistic mind, so it's more like unorthodox methods of, like, let's say, structure change. But we are the living film. We are the subjective film. We are subjectively caused, and we are objectively experiencing the effect. That means, could physical phenomena be the echo of something non-physical? So this mystery of the mind, I encourage every living human being on this planet to start your great work and to start studying what is going on here, you know, and start climbing this mountain towards an advanced civilization where every human being starts off with the greatest vision accessible to them, and then they go forth, right? And you climb the mountain, and as you climb the mountain to an advanced civilization, you will suddenly find your tribe. Your tribe finds you, as the saying goes. You know, that means if you live true to just your nature, you will eventually end up somewhere where you have gone to your resonance. You see, because believe it or not, I feel it's a Shakespearean play, this whole life, and we're actors. And it is true, the actors could be like, no, I want to get enlightened. I don't want to play in this. I don't want to, you know, keep acting in this Maya, in samsara, you know. That means like Sam and Sarah are tired of living in samsara, you know. So in samsara, so many actors right now want to dehumanize, thinking that's liberation. No, that's weakness. That's multidimensional immaturity. It's as if like you entered a game you weren't ready to play. It's like, shame on you, you know? Like on the multidimensional you. So I'm joking, of course, because ultimately you choose where your attention pivots. That means, as when I realized, it was like, you know, I could say this is the strangest thing. In my youth, religious ideology was in my environment, but when I went to school and I read in the science textbooks that energy can't be created and destroyed, I'm like, excuse me, is this an explanation for eternity? Like, let's say the energy is just intelligent, the energy is conscious. Let's say there's what we think is consciousness is an energy, right? It is ultimately an energetic event that's taking place. Now we're saying, okay, what is the energy? And we're excuse me. Some people are looking at the shape of the creature and they're like, okay, let's just look at the shape of it, completely ignoring the fact that there could be other dimensions, even though we see a very limited range of the electromagnetic spectrum, and at the same time we have terms like the unobservable universe and dark matter and dark energy, paralleling a sort of culturally being an unknown self in an unknown world, you know, the content and the context, the content and what holds it. That's what I was trying to put. First, we get this species out of fear, not with artificial, everybody love each other artificially and we get by, like, that's boring. Everybody be naturally true to yourself, but care for the greater overlay of the ethos of civilization, right? That means for the first time, we want to manage, as 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, a multidimensional system, a multidimensional civilization, a civilization where a first step towards it would be a yin-yang civilization where there's a chaotic dimension, and then there's an order dimension. That means in the chaos there's a bit of order, you know, and in the order there's a bit of chaos. That means imagine a chaotic universe where ordered beings were the leaders, and imagine an ordered universe where chaotic beings were the leaders, and this is nature. And people can store it fight as much as they want, but they don't realize this is nature. It's literally the yin-yang symbol, but on a greater spatial level, you know, where it's as if it's implying the dual natures. That means there has been certain moments where I would say the sense of self, this is in the inner realms, not in the outer realms. In the inner realms, your sense, like if you were to close your eyes and visualize yourself, that sense of self can instantaneously, like the film Jumper, teleport into different memories. So what is going on when the person's like remembering what they did yesterday is that like they're teleporting into inner realm landscape events, right? So they're film teleporting, you know, they're film jumping, you know. And so that film jumping eventually goes to suddenly one point where they remember suddenly everything. They find a self that knew instantaneously how the moment was, and they remember everything. So what that means is your memory Terence McKenna. He said this interesting thing in one of his lectures where there's and every idea has a meme. You know, like just like how we have the human being and there's the gene to the idea, imagine there's a meme. I don't know if that was the exact way Terence McKenna said it, but it was like he was implying towards like the essence of an idea. Like it's like the skeleton of the idea. Okay? I feel maybe that's closer to it. So the meme, now imagine I have come now and I'm saying that meme is pure geometry and there is an image. That means without being a person, there is no such thing as memory. Memories are as arbitrary as the idea of self. That means memory could be ancient magic if you see it from a kind of old school view, and if you see it from a future school view, it is a field. Memory is a field. That means right now you're looking at the sky. Now imagine you become the sky of every shaped content of your attention. it's like people are being responsible first for what they do. Now it's important to also become responsible for how we're being, and that requires the greater collective narrative. And we shouldn't fear abstraction. We should just probably stop calling reality reality and imagination imagination, and remodel our certainty through a new universal life. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and I hope this episode was helpful. I'll be on Discord for those interested. And for those, anyone listening to this who cares, like if you look at the picture for now and you care for that sky, and you care for the ocean waves, and you care for the beauty of nature, please care for my Patreon too. No, it's